Have you ever truly felt stillness within your soul? A moment when the noisy sounds of the world fade away, when the endless stream of thoughts no longer pulls you in every direction. In the midst of life's busyness and overwhelming pressures, we often forget that peace is not something distant, it is right within us. In Buddhism, stillness is not merely the absence of sound, it is the calmness of the mind. It is when we let go of all restlessness and attachments, allowing ourselves to listen deeply, to connect profoundly with the truth of the present moment. But how do we cultivate stillness in a world filled with chaos? What role does stillness play in our journey of transformation and awakening? In this video, we will explore the path of stillness not just as a way to find peace, but as a gateway to wisdom, helping us understand ourselves and the world around us on a deeper level. Take a moment to reflect on your own life, a life filled with ceaseless noise. The honking of car horns, the constant notifications on your phone, the rapid conversations, and the endless stream of thoughts running through your mind. In the modern world, where people are always rushing to keep up with life's demands, stillness has become a luxury. Many fear silence because, in its presence, they are forced to face themselves, their worries, fears, and unresolved burdens that they usually try to escape. However, Buddhism teaches that it is precisely within stillness that we can discover true inner peace, a state that is not dictated by external circumstances, not carried away by illusions or suffering. The stillness that the Buddha spoke of is not merely the absence of external noise, it is the tranquility of the heart, the calm amidst the ever-changing tides of life. It is a gateway to liberation, a path that leads to the understanding of reality as it is and to the awakening of true wisdom. What makes stillness such an essential element in Buddhist teachings? Why is the act of pausing, remaining silent, and observing considered the key to inner transformation? Stillness, in Buddhism, is not a passive state, nor is it an escape from life. On the contrary, it is an active letting go, a way to confront oneself in the most honest way. When the mind is no longer disturbed by desires, anger, or delusion, when we are no longer swept away by incessant thoughts, then in that very moment, we are truly present. It is in that state that wisdom begins to unfold, allowing us to see things as they truly are, unobscured by distorted perceptions and conditioned biases. Observe those who possess true inner strength, and you will notice a common trait: they are not easily shaken by trivial matters, nor are they drawn into unnecessary conflicts or drama. They carry a deep and profound sense of calm from within. This is not indifference or apathy, rather, it is a deep understanding that everything is impermanent, that all struggles and competitions are fleeting. When stillness resides in the heart, we are no longer swayed by the storms of life, we stand firm amidst all circumstances. However, attaining such stillness is not easy. We live in an era where busyness is often equated with success, where people feel the constant need to do something, to achieve something. Sitting still, doing nothing, is sometimes perceived as a waste of time. Yet in reality, it is in these moments of stillness that we can truly reconnect with ourselves and recognize what truly matters in life. In Buddhist tradition, there is a story about a Zen master who lived on a mountain. One day, a man came to him and asked, "Master, I seek peace, but my heart is restless. What should I do?" The Zen master smiled, poured a cup of tea, and placed it in front of the man. Then, he remained silent, saying nothing. At first, the man felt uncomfortable with the silence, but gradually, he began to quiet down, to observe himself. He realized that his restlessness did not come from external circumstances but from his own mind. The master's silence was not indifference, it was a profound teaching, showing that the true answer lies not in words, but within the silence itself. In life, we often search for answers externally, but sometimes, the answer is found within stillness. When we listen deeply to ourselves, we gain a clearer understanding of who we are, allowing us to live more fully and authentically. Just as a still lake reflects images clearly, a tranquil mind reflects reality with precision. But if the lake is disturbed, its reflection becomes distorted. Similarly, when our minds are unsettled by worries, desires, or negative thoughts, we cannot perceive reality accurately. Therefore, stillness is not just a psychological state, it is also a method for attaining wisdom. Once we understand the value of stillness, we realize that it is not merely an option but a necessity in life. Amidst a noisy world, we must grant ourselves moments of silence to listen inwardly, to discover the peace that has always been within us. As we delve deeper into the nature of stillness, we will come to see that it is not just the silence of sound, but also the quieting of the mind. But how can we cultivate such a state? And why did the Buddha consider stillness to be one of the highest expressions of wisdom? These are the questions we will explore in the next chapter. In modern society, where people are increasingly dependent on technology and external interactions, stillness has become rare and often misunderstood. Many believe that stillness is a passive state, a withdrawal from the world. However, in Buddhist teachings, stillness is the foundation for attaining wisdom and enlightenment. The Buddha did not merely teach about stillness, he lived it, embodying it in every step, every gaze, and in the very way he transmitted the Dharma. Stillness is not the conventional silence that we understand in the worldly sense. It is not merely the absence of speech or sound, but an inner state of absolute serenity, where the mind is no longer disturbed by external conditions. It is a kind of stillness that arises from deep understanding of reality, from letting go of attachments and illusions, and from abiding fully in the present moment. In Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha often used stillness as a means of guiding his disciples. On one occasion, he simply held up a flower and smiled without saying a word. Everyone present remained silent, but only Mahakassapa smiled in return. In that very moment, he attained enlightenment, for he understood what the Buddha was conveying, that truth does not always need to be expressed in words. Sometimes, it is only in stillness that we can perceive the deepest wisdom. Why does stillness hold such power? Because it allows us to transcend the noise of the mind. If we observe carefully, we will see that even when there is no external noise, our minds never stop producing endless streams of thoughts. We worry about the future, reminisce about the past, or get caught up in ever-changing emotions. This inner noise is what stillness helps us to dissolve. When we practice stillness, we are no longer carried away by these thoughts. We learn to observe them instead of identifying with them. Instead of letting the mind drift like a boat lost at sea, we learn to stand firmly on the shore and simply witness the flow of thoughts. This very act of observation is the gateway to wisdom. Those who have experienced deep stillness all recognize one thing: it brings clarity. In life, when we are confused or suffering, we often seek guidance from external sources. Yet, the real answers lie within the stillness of our own hearts. When the mind becomes tranquil, we begin to see clearly what truly matters, what is fleeting, what is worth pursuing, and what is best to release. The benefits of stillness extend beyond the spiritual realm, they have tangible effects on physical health as well. Modern scientific research has shown that dedicating time to stillness can reduce stress, improve sleep quality, enhance focus, and even lower the risk of stress-related illnesses such as high blood pressure and heart disease. In the scriptures, the Buddha said, "One who knows how to pause is one who has wisdom." To pause does not mean ceasing all activities, it means stopping the ceaseless waves of delusions, afflictions, and cravings that control the mind. When we learn to pause and return to stillness, we realize that many things we once thought were important are not truly so, and many things we once clung to are not worth holding on to. We live in a world that moves at an overwhelming speed. People are constantly busy, juggling countless responsibilities, tasks, and plans. But without moments of stillness to listen to ourselves, we may easily get swept away in the currents of life, unknowingly losing our inner balance. Stillness is an art. It does not happen randomly but must be cultivated daily. If each person could dedicate even just a few minutes a day to stillness, to sitting quietly, to breathing mindfully, life would become lighter, relationships less strained, and, most importantly, the soul would be nourished by the peace that arises from within. And when we truly understand the power of stillness, we will no longer fear silence. We will cherish it, for we will know that it is in stillness that we can hear the most profound truths, not from the outside, but from deep within ourselves. Now that we understand the nature and power of stillness, how can we apply it practically in our daily lives? And what specific benefits does stillness bring to both the body and mind? These are the questions we will explore in the next section. Stillness is not merely a temporary state of relaxation, it is also a powerful method for healing deep wounds in the soul. In modern life, people are increasingly caught in the whirlwind of work, responsibilities, and endless desires. This leads to stress, anxiety, and sometimes even a loss of direction. Yet, even a brief moment of stillness can help us recognize the entanglements within our minds and find a clearer path forward. Stress is not simply a fleeting feeling, but a state that accumulates over time. When we are constantly confronted with pressures from work, family, and society, our minds grow weary. The danger is that many people fail to recognize their stress until it manifests as a serious issue, such as illness, exhaustion, or emotional disturbance. In Buddhism, there is a term called suffering from actions, a kind of fatigue that arises from repetitive thoughts, anxieties, and psychological habits. Stillness helps us break this cycle. When we pause, we gain a clearer view of what is unfolding within our minds. It is at these moments that we realize that much of the stress we experience does not come from external circumstances, but from how we react to them. For example, two people may be performing the same busy task, but one feels light and at ease, while the other becomes deeply stressed. The difference does not lie in the task itself, but in how they approach and handle the situation. If we learn to face life with stillness, we will not be swept away by external fluctuations, but instead maintain peace from within. In the meditation traditions of Buddhism, stillness is not only a method for relieving stress, but also the path that leads to awakening. When the mind settles, we begin to see the true nature of all things and phenomena. One of the most important realizations that the Buddha had upon attaining enlightenment was the impermanence of everything, that nothing exists forever in a fixed form. Everything is in constant change, from the smallest emotions in our hearts to the vastness of the universe itself. However, humans often cling to things they believe to be unchanging. We cling to relationships, jobs, titles, or even an image of ourselves. This attachment is the root of suffering, for when things inevitably change, we experience loss and sorrow. By practicing stillness, we are given the opportunity to examine what we are clinging to, and to question whether those attachments are truly important. In Buddhism, there is an important concept known as emptiness. This is not an emptiness in a negative sense, but rather a state of openness in which we can see things as they truly are, without being influenced by personal biases or emotions. When we touch into emptiness, we realize that all thoughts, emotions, and events come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. When we no longer cling to them, we are no longer controlled by our emotions, and this brings true freedom. A practical example of this is when we feel anger towards someone. If we do not have stillness in our minds, we will react immediately, perhaps with words or actions that cause harm. But if we take a moment to pause, breathe, and observe our emotions, we will realize that the anger is merely a temporary reaction, not our true nature. Understanding this, we can choose to act more calmly, without allowing a fleeting emotion to destroy important relationships. Stillness not only helps in interactions with others, but also enables us to understand ourselves more clearly. We begin to notice the repetitive thoughts in our minds, the invisible fears that have existed for a long time but which we have never confronted. For example, many people have an underlying fear of being judged, which leads them to constantly seek the approval of others. But when we sit in stillness and observe, we can trace where this fear comes from, perhaps from past experiences or casual words spoken by someone, and, more importantly, we can learn to let it go. Stillness can also help open our intuition. In modern life, we are often overwhelmed by too much external information, which makes us forget the ability to listen to our inner voice. But when we make time for stillness, we begin to sense the answers that arise from within, rather than from outside opinions. For instance, many people feel confused when faced with an important decision because of the multitude of choices. But if they sit down, be still, and observe, they will realize that the answer has always been within them. Intuition is not something mystical, but a deep understanding from within, a clarity that is not clouded by worries or desires. Stillness also helps us appreciate the small moments of life. When our minds are too busy, we often miss the simple yet precious things. A peaceful morning, a cool breeze, or the smile of a loved one. But when we slow down and truly become present, we find that happiness does not come from grand achievements, but from those simple moments. So, how can we cultivate stillness in our daily lives? The key is not necessarily to spend hours meditating, but to find moments of stillness within the ordinary activities of life. When walking, we can slow down and feel each step. When eating, we can eat mindfully, without being distracted by our phones or scattered thoughts. When conversing with others, we can truly listen without rushing to respond. Gradually, as we practice stillness regularly, we will notice an inner shift. We will be less swayed by external fluctuations, less caught up in unnecessary stress, and most importantly, we will live more consciously. And once we have understood the profound benefits of stillness, the next step is to use it to explore ourselves. For stillness is not just a tool for reducing stress, but a path that leads to self-awareness, helping us see into our minds, understand our true nature, and from there, find the most righteous path in life. When the mind settles into stillness, we begin to notice the thoughts operating within us. Sometimes, they are unresolved anxieties, distant memories that still shape how we react to the present, or unconscious attachments we cling to. In our busy lives, filled with responsibilities and constant external stimulation, we rarely have the opportunity to observe these patterns clearly. Only when we enter a state of stillness does our mind become like a calm, undisturbed lake, allowing the truth of our inner world to gradually reveal itself. In Buddhism, self-awareness holds profound significance because it is the key to liberating oneself from suffering caused by ignorance. The Buddha taught that all suffering originates from a lack of understanding of ourselves, of the nature of the world, and of the fundamental laws governing life. When we do not understand ourselves, we become easily swayed by emotions, influenced by external circumstances, and make decisions that do not truly reflect our deepest values. Stillness allows us to uncover the psychological habits that have formed over many years. We begin to recognize recurring thought patterns that play in our minds daily, often without our awareness. There are old beliefs that shape our reactions in certain ways, even when they no longer serve us. For example, someone who has been hurt in a past relationship may carry a fear of abandonment, causing them to either seek control or avoid intimacy in future relationships. Without self-awareness, they may continue these behaviors without understanding why. Stillness not only helps us identify these mental patterns but also provides the space to observe them objectively. We begin to see that thoughts are just thoughts, they are not absolute truths. When we take a step back and observe our minds as an outsider would, we no longer get swept away by emotions blindly. This brings an immense sense of freedom, as we are no longer trapped in unconscious patterns. In daily life, this self-awareness allows us to make wiser decisions. When we understand ourselves, we know what truly matters to us and what is merely a fleeting desire influenced by external pressures. We stop chasing goals imposed by society and instead choose a path aligned with our true values and nature. For instance, many people spend their entire lives pursuing material success, believing that wealth will bring them happiness. But when they pause and observe their minds, they may realize that what they truly crave is not money itself but a sense of security, recognition, or connection with others. Understanding this allows them to seek fulfillment in ways beyond mere financial gain, rather than endlessly chasing a goal that may never truly satisfy them. Stillness not only deepens our understanding of ourselves but also enhances our perception of the world around us. When our minds are no longer clouded by chaotic thoughts, we can see things more clearly and objectively. We begin to recognize that others also struggle with their own suffering, often grappling with issues they themselves may not fully understand. This realization fosters compassion, reduces judgment, and enables us to empathize more deeply with those around us. For example, if someone treats us harshly, instead of immediately reacting with anger, we can pause and reflect. Perhaps they are going through something difficult. Perhaps they carry wounds of their own that I cannot see. With self-awareness, we no longer let fleeting emotions dictate our actions, but instead respond with clarity and kindness. However, self-awareness is not merely an intellectual exercise, it requires consistent practice in everyday life. Whenever we encounter a challenging situation, rather than reacting based on old habits, we can pause for a moment, observe our emotions, and ask ourselves, why do I feel this way? Is this reaction connected to a past experience? Do I truly want to respond in this manner? Over time, as we cultivate self-awareness regularly, we realize that we are no longer controlled by negative thoughts or emotions. We begin to live proactively rather than reactively, no longer bound by unconscious patterns we have carried for years. And from this foundation of self-awareness, we take yet another step, applying stillness to modern life, where noise and distraction are ever present. Stillness is not merely a state of mind but a way of living, a conscious choice amidst the chaos. And when we practice it, we discover a profound sense of peace even in the midst of a turbulent world. In an era where life moves at an ever-accelerating pace, people seem to be losing the ability to embrace silence. We are constantly bombarded with sounds, information, work pressures, family responsibilities, relationships, and societal expectations. Noise does not only come from the external world but also exists within the ceaseless stream of thoughts about the past and future, worries, regrets, desires, and anxieties. In this context, silence is no longer merely the absence of sound but a state of mind, a place where one can return to inner peace and gain a clearer understanding of oneself and life. Silence in Buddhism is not a passive state or a withdrawal from the world, rather, it is a practice that helps individuals engage with reality in a more awakened manner. The Buddha taught that true peace does not arise from escaping life's turbulence but from our inner ability to observe, understand, and transform it. When we cultivate silence, we do not merely remove external distractions, we learn to listen deeply to our own minds. One of the greatest benefits of silence is that it allows individuals to reconnect with themselves. In modern society, many people have lost this connection because they are too busy pursuing external goals. We become consumed by work, wealth, status, relationships, and countless other pursuits, rarely pausing to ask ourselves, what do I truly need? What are my core values? Without self-connection, we easily feel empty and lost, even if we appear to be leading a successful and fulfilling life on the surface. The practice of silence provides us with the space to pause, to listen to the inner voice, and to recognize what truly matters. When we are no longer scattered by external influences, we can see our emotions, thoughts, and motivations more clearly. This clarity allows us to make wiser decisions and to live a life of meaning rather than simply chasing what society or others impose upon us. Another benefit of silence is its ability to help us observe and understand reality more clearly. When the mind is no longer overwhelmed by excessive stimulation, we can see life with greater objectivity. Issues that once seemed significant may begin to feel trivial, and worries that previously haunted us may lose their grip. Silence enables us to step outside our habitual mental reactions so that we can perceive things with greater wisdom and compassion. Silence also positively impacts relationships. Those who cultivate silence learn to listen to others without judgment, without rushing to react or impose their own views. This fosters deeper understanding and stronger connections between people. In a modern world that encourages quick exchanges, debates, and self-expression, silence introduces a different way of interacting, one of genuine presence and profound connection. Practicing silence does not mean abandoning all sound or avoiding interaction with the world. What matters is how we approach life, how we engage with the sounds and disturbances around us. We can choose to live mindfully, maintaining an inner silence that remains steady even amid external noise and turmoil. Once we recognize the value of silence, the next question is how to incorporate it into daily life. In a busy and distraction-filled world, how can each of us create moments of silence for ourselves? The answer lies in small but meaningful practices, steps that gradually build the habit of living with mindfulness and inner peace. In the modern world, silence is not easily attained, yet it is one of the most essential elements in maintaining inner balance. People today are accustomed to haste, packed schedules, and the relentless flow of information from technological devices. Silence is not merely about sitting still. It is a state of mind where one can observe, understand, and transform what is happening within. To cultivate this, each individual needs a concrete practice, starting with small but meaningful steps that gradually build a solid foundation for inner peace. The first step in practicing silence is to establish a dedicated space and time for stillness. This does not mean retreating from society or isolating oneself in the mountains, but simply creating moments where one can pause, free from external distractions. Just 5 minutes a day of sitting and observing the mind can reveal an endless stream of thoughts flowing within. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, as the mind is unaccustomed to stillness. But with patience and consistent practice, one begins to realize that these thoughts are merely passing waves, and we are not defined by them. An effective method for cultivating silence is using the breath as an anchor. When the mind wavers, gently return attention to the breath. The breath is a bridge connecting body and mind, bringing us back to the present moment with ease. By observing the breath without controlling it, we can truly experience the unfolding of life in each moment. This practice not only calms the mind but also increases our awareness of how we live each day. Additionally, silence can be practiced through the way we engage with sound and speech. In daily conversations, we often feel compelled to respond immediately, to assert our opinions, or to argue in defense of our ego. However, by practicing deep listening in silence, we come to understand that not every situation requires our voice. When we truly listen without inserting our own judgments, we create a space for deeper understanding and more meaningful connections with others. Silence in communication is not passive, it is an intentional practice where every word arises from mindfulness and compassion. Another crucial aspect of practicing silence is learning to let go of external distractions. This does not mean abandoning technology or cutting off contact with others, but rather setting aside moments each day free from phones, social media, or news. Taking time away from electronic devices allows us to cultivate stillness and deepen our connection with ourselves. Silence can also be nurtured through our connection with nature. Walking in the forest, sitting by a river, or simply gazing at the sky can bring a profound sense of peace. In these moments, there is no need to do anything, just be present and feel the life around you. Such experiences reveal that silence is not something distant or difficult to attain, it is always present in our breath and every step we take. Another way to cultivate silence is by integrating it into daily activities. When eating, practice mindful eating without rushing, without checking the phone, without thinking about work. When walking, feel each step touching the earth instead of getting lost in wandering thoughts. When working, focus entirely on one task at a time rather than allowing the mind to be pulled in multiple directions. Silence is not a goal but a path, one that allows us to live more deeply and meaningfully. It is not something difficult or far away but can be practiced within the ordinary moments of daily life. When we truly dedicate time to silence, we not only discover inner peace but also radiate that peace to those around us. When the outer world is too noisy, we often forget that there is a world of silence within, waiting for us to return. This silence is not isolation, nor is it an escape from reality, it is a way of seeing through to the essence of all things. It helps us understand that peace is not something distant but a state that can be cultivated in each moment of life. By choosing silence, we allow the mind to rest, freeing it from the grip of endless thoughts and worries. We learn to listen more deeply, not only to others but also to ourselves. And from there, true peace begins to blossom. Take a moment each day to return to yourself, to embrace silence even if only for a single breath, a single instant. For within silence, wisdom and liberation gradually reveal themselves.